Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Rashmi from greytHR. I'm today's moderator of this session. First and foremost, a warm welcome to one and all, and thank you for joining us today in this exclusive session of Parichay, Data-Driven HR and People Analytics. So before we begin with the session, let's do a bit of housekeeping on how the session goes on. For first few minutes, there will be a discussion done on our today's topic with the help of our keynote speakers, which is then followed by Q&A. So if you have any questions, please type them into the question box in your Zoom control panel. I'll bring them up during Q&A round and try and get the answers for your questions from our experts. Also, if you're worried about missing out on any part of our today's session due to some unavoidable reasons, not to worry at all, as the session is currently being recorded and will also be soon shared with all of you. Well, to talk about our today's topic, human resource management has undergone a paradigm shift over the past few years. Gone are the days when HR used to mean just a recruitment team working at the back end. Today, human resource function in every organization has taken a front seat in making strategic decisions for achieving the business goals. And this transformation brought the need for analyzing data and adopting scientific methods rather than relying on guts and whims. So our today's discussion is on data-driven HR and people analytics and how and why companies should implement it. So in this session, we will hear from the experts and learn from their experiences of adopting and implementing people analytics for business efficiency. With this note, I would like to now introduce our keynote speakers. So our first keynote speaker of today's session is Ms. Megha Gupta. Megha Gupta is Director HR at Finserv, and she's an expert in strategic business partnership, organizational and leadership development, talent management, performance management, diversity and inclusion, compliance, and employee engagement. Ms. Megha is also known in the industry for leading the vision of scaling up teams to strategic HR partners and focusing on capability building to enable them through this change. So among the several honors and awards that she has received include her recognition as HR 40 under 40 by BW Business World 2020. So welcome to this session, Ms. Megha. Glad to have you here.
Thank you, Rashmi. Just for all the listeners, the organization is not Finserv, but Pfizer. There are two different organizations, but absolutely glad to be here.
Thank you so much, Megha. Yeah. So moving on to our next keynote speaker, Mr. Colin Mendes. So Mr. Colin, Head of Human Resources at Voltas Beko. So now currently Mr. Colin is the head HR of the domestic projects group at Voltas, India's largest air conditioning company and one of the world's premier engineering solution providers and project specialists. So Mr. Colin in his current role manages human resources, capability building, compliance management, and safety, health, and environment. In his earlier assignments, Mr. Colin has worked across varied industries covering various facets of HR at the operational and strategic level. He has held senior leadership positions with Tata Teleservices, WNS Global Services, Bharti Airtel, Hindustan Unilever, and Pfizer, with specific exposure in people and change management during mergers and acquisitions. So Mr. Colin, welcome to this session, and it's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you, Rashmi. Good evening, everybody. Happy to be here.
Yeah. So moving on to our next keynote speaker, Mr. Samar Banerjee, Group Head Human Resources at Berger Paints, India. So Mr. Banerjee has over 2 decades of multi-industry and multi-domain HR and ER experience with expertise in people development processes, handling people challenges and delivering mission-critical HR results for the business. Some of the industries he has worked with include automobiles, beverages, that's FMCG, chemicals and bulk chemicals, cement and media. Previously, Banerjee worked with Imami Cement, Bennett Coleman and Company, ACC, PepsiCo, and others in leadership position. Having spent the early part of his career handling plant-level IR or ER, he possesses hands-on experience in handling large-scale employee restructuring operations and attendant IR situations, wage negotiation and settlements, handling multiple unions, external stakeholders management, etc. So welcome to this session, Mr. Samar Banerjee. We are delighted to have you here. All right. So moving to our next speaker of our today's session, the keynote speaker, Mr. Rajiv Naithani. Mr. Rajiv Naithani, EVP and Chief People Officer at Infogain. Rajiv is a multifaceted leader with more than 15 years of experience in organizational development, talent management, change management, HR strategy, compensation and benefits, learning development, and M&A integration. He is known as a thought leader in the human behavior and human resources space. Rajiv has also received multiple HR Excellence Awards, including Outstanding HR Leader Award at Conference Asia and the Young HR Professional of the Year 2014 Award at the 5th Asia's Best Employer Brands Awards in Singapore. So Rajiv joins Infogain from Dassault Systems 3DS, where he headed the HR functions for R&D and services businesses in India. Prior to that, Rajiv was the India HR head and global OD leader for Global Logic. He has also held leadership positions at Interglobe Technologies and HCL in the past. And also, Rajiv is an avid writer, speaker, and has authored multiple thought leadership articles. He is also an enthusiastic social activist and serves as Board of Trustee with Pauri Garhwal Trust, which focuses on the development of underprivileged people in Uttarakhand state. So, Mr. Rajiv, welcome to this session, and it's an honor to have you here.
Thank you, Rashmi. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah. So dear attendees, without further delay, let's go for the discussion. So I'll now head towards the Q&A with the experts and then take up the questions from all of you. So my first question is for Ms. Megha. Megha, what do you think? How HR analytics have changed the human resource landscape and why it is important for HR professionals to invest in analytics?
Yeah, thank you, Rashmi. And, while our listeners are hearing this, let me, step back from, if you go back in the history of HR, I think HR literally started, from a payroll administration to, collating a lot of HRIS systems. And then, HR really evolved into, the strategic HR partner. And that's where I think the HR shared services got formed as an HR structure. And you would have a team of dedicated people who will resolve queries for, your people. To now today, if you step in the HR piece, you have a dedicated team of HR analytics who not just, solve automated queries, which is related to, hey, what's my leave balance, to what's my XYZ, which is through AI, ML, chatbots that people are leveraging today, to even, a lot of automation / analytics help HR people to move beyond the curve of thinking as simple as attrition. Today, we always have been talking about attrition and, what's the attrition rate of this year. To today, data can really give insights to an HR person to think beyond just what you can see, to say, hey, who are those 10 people who's going to attract in the next 6 months, which is more, leveraging all the insights that you have in the organization, feeding all that data together and saying, if these are the 30% that have, but what are the exact names of those people who are going to attract basis, all that analytics that you can put together, which is called the predictive attrition today. And that's the value that data comes to an HR space, if you really put together, a lot of meaningful insight that you already have. So I feel HR has really moved this journey right from, you see from the evolution of HR to what we are today. I think today, everybody, any meeting that HR person goes to with the business leader, like I don't remember any meeting that starts without a data point to say that, oh my God, this is what our pyramid structure looks like. This is what the diversity percentage look like. In this diversity percentage, this much percentage of the people leave, which means average tenure of a woman to men is XYZ. Imagine what data throws you out from a number to say, now because of that, this should be my hiring strategy, this should be my learning strategy, this should be my retention strategy, and this should be my engagement strategy. Imagine one data point of saying, this is my pyramid, this is my diversity, what's the average tenure of person leaving, can decide 4 different parameters for you. I think that's the value data brings in. That's the value that HR leaders now need to start understanding and really connect the dots of everything from end to end that we do in HR and leverage that data that you have, make insights for your leaders. It's not just showing the data, it's about connecting the overall landscape of what's happening in the organization through that data, and then make decisions which are data driven to say, if we do XYZ because we saw this data inside, we are going to achieve at 40% diversity, or we are going to be able to have average tenure move from 2 years to 3 years because we are taking a calculative decision here. These are the 30 people basis of predictive attrition who are going to leave. So either we hire 30 more people on the same skill set, or we promote, or we find out what's the risk level, how do we save these people. Imagine so many data points that you can take from analytics. And I think that's the value today. We in the HR industry, most of the good organizations have started to have a hardcore analyst team within HR itself to make a couple of things. And I feel that's the future if I have to really talk about analytics in HR.
Yeah, completely agree with you, Megha. Thanks for sharing your insights. And also in the similar note, I would now next like to go for Mr. Colin. So Mr. Colin, my question to you is how analytics has helped position HR as a strategic partner in organizations, and what are the key HR decisions that should be data-driven in order to meet organizational goals?
Thank you, Rashmi. And in fact, Megha so beautifully spoke about the entire journey of how HR got digitized and actually has transformed to become a strategic partner. Let me start with, a lot has been spoken on HR analytics and how it can be used and so on and so forth. The biggest question that I want to ask everyone, how many of us are really using it to extract the fullest value that we can? We all have the data which we are leveraging. We all have the data which we are leveraging really and making it very effective. But there are a number of KPIs where which I'm sure most of us must be tracking. For example, employee demographics, headcount, attrition, retention, risk factors, staff cost, and so on and so forth. To my mind, HR analytics must go far beyond just extracting basic data. And that's the point really of the premise which I wanted to tell my story about, because I think it's we're doing a lot of it, and many organizations, whether it's for manufacturing or to various sectors, we're extracting a lot of data, we're putting a lot of data, but I think putting that data into good use is the gap that I potentially see. And I think there is the real impact to an organization can come from from what the data means and how it can really be used to drive decisions. Yeah. Today, today every organization is pushing itself to do more with less. Yeah. Performance is being measured by cost reduction, by productivity, by customer engagement or customer engagement improvement, really, by regulatory compliance, and by growth via digital, where the use of analytics has played a very important role. And today, 2 of these have gained the topmost priority. Number 1 is customer engagement improvement, and the second is growth via digital. And here is where analytics has played a very, very important role. And I think it's very important here that first we need to identify and focus on what is the most urgent and most important to my organization. we need to start with the shoe really starts pinching us the most. And this key is where we can actually make a big impact. That is what this is all about. So with the right data and insights, we can really focus on improving recruitment efforts today. We can focus on creating talent pools. We can focus on enhancing productivity. We can focus on developing various learning and intervention tools. Really, we can focus on reducing turnover, and Megha spoke about attrition, how we can handle that. We can focus on driving employee engagement and connecting people to the business, to the extent possible. So there are various ways. Let me start with, for example, with the right data and insights, you can really help to do many aspects, and I'll try and give you a few examples to that. For example, recruiting. Yeah, while recruiting the candidate, there are various channels that we use for recruitment to drive traffic. For example, you may use a job website and so on and so forth. And what is the objective? The key is to find the closest fit in the shortest time at the right cost. Yeah, and I think this is the most important aspect. So what is the tool that can help you do that? Yeah. So you look at your various channels that you have and who is giving you the biggest bang for the buck, which is the most important thing. So is it your recruitment consultant who's really working tirelessly? Is it the job site that you have subscribed to? Is it the employee referral program that will help you determine and put more energy? I think these are important areas to think and reflect upon. The second thing is about attrition. Yeah. And if you're facing attrition at the front line, what you might want to look at retention data, you might want to look at hiring trends, you might want to, track the position of the manager and the region and the location, to see, where is the problem and try and fix that. Let me give you another example of learning and development, where effectiveness of learning interventions are being questioned time and again. What is the matrix that you want to use to measure that? The most important one and the biggest cost to very large organizations, particularly service-based organizations, is tracking staff costs. Yeah, overtime. How much overtime you're paying? What is your staff cost as a percentage to revenue? These are going to be key insights that will give business decision from where you want to put your money, which is the resource you want to put more effort in, and ensure that you're going to get more delivery for what you want. If the concern is really staff costs, you may want to track employee productivity, you may want to track overtime, and so on and so forth. I think these are very, very important things. And of course, the other common aspect is about engagement, and this really envelopes the entire organization. And when I'm talking about engagement, I'm talking about things like advocacy. Would someone want to recommend your company as a place to work? Loyalty, with how long would people stay with your company? These are early signals, and as these would actually, as Megha mentioned, these would be early warning bells that will help you understand that, hey, I need I know these are potential attritions, and here is where I need to fill up a talent pipeline. Yeah. Again, the aspect of looking at high engagement results leading to lesser absenteeism, leading to lesser attrition, fewer safety incidents, and so on and so forth. If I try and put all these data points together, you look at employee engagement data, for example, and you look at the manager's scorecard. If the manager's scorecard is low, you need to correlate it with various issues. Is it absenteeism? Is it attrition? Is it low productivity? Is it low performance? And this will actually help in really redesigning the organization, in that sense. So I think this is very, very significant, and we're talking about a lot of things that we look at. We can really look at data analytics to help decode a lot of it for us. Let me give you one last example, and that is on employee wellness. If I look at employee wellness in a more holistic way, you look at how many times an employee visited the medical office, correlate that with absenteeism, correlate that with leave, correlate that with pre-employment health checkups or annual health checkups, correlate that with insurance claims. This will give you a snapshot of your organization health. And this is where, the power of analytics really can make a big difference. So I personally do see that, one has to identify few KPIs that are relevant for your organization, bring in the right tools to help you bring to be able to measure and track over a period of time. And I think I would like to say that, HR analytics can contribute to a large extent to organization success.
Thank you, Mr. Colin. I think those were the very helpful thoughts. So having talked about the employee attrition, employee wellness, and another important aspect the HR has to consider is about the employee retention. So Mr. Banerjee, the question for you, what is your opinion now when the question comes up something like how do HR analytics help in employee engagement and retention, and how SMEs can implement it? Mr. Banerjee?
Yeah, thank you so much, Rasmi. And I take the opportunity to thank my panelists, co-panelists, Megha and Colin, for secondly putting it across the need and requirement of data analytics. However, I think I will go a little beyond or earlier than what I think Megha and Collins have been referring to. So I have spent a large part of my career in industrial relations. So when I look back and then see, and we in the early days of our career, we were really hassled that you need to fill up so many statutory returns, you need to fill up so many forms, you need to keep so much of record. I think if someone would have worked in a plant, Colin, I really do not know, but he must have had spent some time in the plant where you're supposed to keep an adult worker register which ran into columns and columns. So that was one. Second, you were supposed to send certain periodic returns to the government authorities and agencies. And what were they actually?
Mr.
They,
Banerjee, sorry to interrupt you. I think your
they, they,
video
they,
is off.
I know I have to keep my video off because Zoom is not permitted in our organization.
Okay,
So
okay,
I
okay,
have
fine.
to
Please
sort of,
continue. Please continue. Yeah.
so that is the reason. Uh, so when we look back to those times, and then we used to run engagement surveys manually. We used to collect information manually, store it in maybe some different format. So has really things have changed, or we are looking at data differently is what has changed. It is not a question that whether we were not collecting or capturing data. What has typically changed is how are we collecting, what is that we are collecting, and how are we using that data is that has changed. Big analytics probably existed 50 years ago. Even before some of us were born, it existed. The tools existed earlier also. So it is honestly speaking, I don't see there is much of novelty in terms of we, the HR guys, going gung ho about big analytics and data analytics, and we are using it and no one else is using it. So what has actually transformed in between is the faster rate of assimilation of those tools in the HR function. As Megha has very rightly pointed out, for HR to be seen as a strategic partner, you will have to correlate your actions with some kind of data backup. So earlier, HR was sort of pushed to the corner because you are talking gibberish without any kind of data backup. So we were typically very subjective. We were talking about behavior without supplementing them with some kind of actions or actionable insights as to what has been done. So keeping this background in mind, what I feel is what is today getting captured, what how it is getting captured, and how we are using it is has actually undergone a transformation. And if you look at the data analytics part today, it is typically the iceberg model. We were earlier looking at the data points from a very the iceberg kind of a thing. The top 10% of the data was visible without really understanding or trying to go into the depth of it and seeing what is beyond this data, as Collins was very rightly pointing out. that if you are facing a lot of absenteeism, is absenteeism a result of ill health? Is absenteeism a result of certain other addictive behavior of the workforce? Is absenteeism a result of people staying far away from your workplace? They are not really connected well. There is a problem in commuting and so on and so forth. So what today we are capturing is more about the emotions, sentiments, moods, and a little bit of subjective interpretation of the data which is helping us. So the question that Rasmi you posed me is how is big data or data analytics going to help us in sort of improve our retention? So if you really delve into the data of attrition that is being happening in any of the industry, you will find typically the reasons why people leave is because of workplace behavior and workplace arrangements. And today we need to appreciate that the multi-generational workforce that is existing, the current generation, their aspirations, their needs, their requirements are entirely different from maybe a generation earlier than that. So unless we are able to understand and reorganize things in a manner that it meets their aspirations and requirements, so they're really not very excited to be with you, and they will typically search for jobs. So how how your data analytics helps is the manager connect scorecard is what Collins was also referring to. So most of the good organizations, they run these periodic surveys, the mood analysis, the sentiment analysis, the connect scores, and also the connect score is then correlated with some of the business outcomes, whether the attrition is happening at X place or Y place, what is the reason, is the manager's behavior is the reason, or maybe there can be multiple other reasons which can then be generated from looking at the data analytics in the right perspective. So these data existed earlier also, but the way we are capturing and analyzing it has actually undergone a rapid transformation. It's more consistent, it is more accurate, it is real time, and it gives or throws up a lot of actionable insights. How can we prevent attrition or enhance our retention through these data analytics is from whatever insights we are collecting out of this analytics, we will have to work on them. How do we need to work on them? We carry out any engagement survey or you carry out any sentiment analysis. You just cannot sit with that data. You have to start working on it. It can be around your engagement, it can be around your workplace environment, it can be around your workplace safety, it can be around multiple of such linkages which are then to be understood. And then it is not that one size will fit all. What will fit into Collins's workplace or what will fit into Rajiv's workplace might not fit into my workplace. So today Rajiv can afford to say I'll work from home, but a manufacturing setup cannot say that will work from home. That can be a cause of concern, or it can be a disconnect with the current generation when they'll see their friends from the same college, from the same locality, working in an IT company or working from home, and I am from the same college with the same background. I am working from office. I am commuting in spite of the threat of COVID. So I might look for a change then. So these are to be architect in a manner that they fit the organizational needs and requirements. How big data is going to help us is they provide us real-time, consistent, single source of truth data. How are we able to interpret as HR professionals is more important. How do we then reconfigure or re-architect our HR processes, our HR orientation towards this entire set of thing is more important for us. So as Megha was rightly pointing out, that diversity. So diversity and inclusion, which was something which we knew when we were sending out reports in the annual factory return, that number of women employed, but we never actually realized that this is so important for an organization's success. So today that kind of insight is being brought to the board by the HR professionals. So the responsibility is more with the HR professionals in terms of bringing out actionable insights from the data. So those data existed with us. The way we are now collecting and interpreting has actually gone deeper and has become more meaningful. That is how I see this entire transformation happening. So this is all from my side. If there are any questions that the participants would like to ask, maybe we'll park it after the end of the session. We can probably respond to them. Thank you.
Sure,
Thank you so
Mr.
much.
Mendes. Yeah, thank you so much. Thanks for sharing your thoughts. In fact, yes, Mr. Samar, like you rightly mentioned, data is the new oil. I think all of us agree with this today. Because pandemic has made us realize so many things, that there are many things which are actually possible, which we used to think is not possible. So having talked about this, Mr. Rajiv, I have a question for you about our future generation. So what do you think? Like how people analytics allow the HR to increase the employee productivity, identify and develop the next generation of leaders, either within the company or with new recruits, and track their behavioral improvement?
Sure, thank you. This is definitely a very complex question. We are covering not many aspects of employee productivity to future building future leadership to even impacting the behaviors. And I'm sure we need AI and machine learning to make that happen, right? So having said this, I think people analytics, as you know, all the co-panelists have already covered the scope, the impact, the advantage of it. But really where the difference has come from. The difference has really come from the fact that people analytics help us in making better and faster decisions, right? That's where the transformation has happened. And that has happened primarily because of the technology which we have been leveraging in big way. The challenge has always been and was always been, how do we process the plethora of data from an efficient and impactful decision-making perspective, right? There's so much of data which is available, but what is the way through which we process it? And today we have cloud-based solutions, AI-based solutions, analytics tools, which definitely help us in bringing efficiency in our decision-making, right? However, since you have asked me to limit my overall response in the context of employee productivity and leadership journey, I would not venture out in other areas while responding. So I'll try to focus only on these major aspects. And when I talk about employee productivity to begin with, remember what you measure is what you get, right? So when we talk about employee productivity, the first thing which is very important for us is to define the outcome we want to drive through our people analytics. Right? So we need to be very clear in terms of what is the productive work, right, and what is not. It should not happen that we just, without having defined that, without having defined what the end outcomes we require, we start talking about employee productivity. That won't make any sense. It's like you're on a pitch dark tunnel and you're just walking in without knowing where would you end up being, right? And if I give an example from a technology industry where I come from, we have these software developers, right? Typically, what would be necessary to measure with respect to their productivity is the code lines they're writing, right? And the story point which they're creating as an engineer, in addition to delivering the releases on time and delivering with high amount of quality, right? Now, there's so much which is happening. So this is the what part of the job. Then there's a how part of it, which is working in a Scrum team, working with multiple stakeholders across the spectrum of job roles, from a testing to architects to UI development and so on and so forth. And also working with customer in an agile context of having been following the iterative approach. Now, there's so much which goes into it. So how can you enable the employee productivity better from an analytics enablement perspective? So, you know, when we talk about augmented analytics in this context, which actually is leveraged through artificial intelligence and machine learning, because that's where, you know, you keep getting the insights from a data perspective, you will be in a better position to extract the insights and trends from that data. And also, what you could also as well do is you can leverage technology to provide a consolidated view to the individual on their performance basis stakeholder feedback. So for example, if suppose as an organization, you build 360-degree feedback mechanism, whether it is 180 or whatever the context be, and you also have a client service level feedback which is flowing, and how do you then integrate all of it together, which is the what part of his or her performance and the ecosystem from these feedback which is flowing from different stakeholder standpoint, including customer, and then actually helping person understand what is the overall contribution the individual is bringing on the table, right? And that would be a good technology enabled journey which you can actually make possible for the individual to be able to identify the gaps in the performance. So for example, when the person is actually looking at those data trends that, okay, on a particular day in a week or a particular part of the code development, he or she was not able to actually do it right, or could not deliver it on time, or there was a more time taken from an overall storyline perspective, etc. So that would be the real value add, right? And that will be enabled only through the technology, right? That's where the efficiency and the value add will really comes from. So these are the ways, newer ways through which you can really affect the overall productivity of the employee and help employee become more productive, as well as when at consolidated level, the manager is actually getting the view in terms of how each individual in the team is actually performing and what the gaps are. They can actually bring in the right intervention from their development perspective. Now, similarly, when we go into the context of the leadership part, which you talked about from enablement of future leaders, for internal employees in particular, you can always look at in conjunction with personality and performance data, right? Now, you have a lot of psychometric tools these days. You may be applying them. I talked about 360-degree being one of the source of information for your managers. And then there's a performance. A lot of data is flowing from goals and objective systems to MBO systems and so on and so forth. And through that, you can, you leverage analytics to define what is the good leadership for your business, right? And then you actually determine the overall assessment and development journey for the leadership team basis that. Now, at the same time, I think what you could also do is when you are hiring leaders, right? That point in time, you can actually leverage simulative assessment process, right? We always talk about leadership assessment, which enables you to identify the competency alignment of the people basis different competency which you are assessing for different roles. And there you can get a lot of insights, and that insight actually clubbed with interview process which you're initiating, some of the other tools which you have put in place, and then that gives you aggregated view about whether the person is really right fit for you from an organization standpoint or not. And that's a way you can decide whether this person is really good for you or not. And I think the technology will again play an important role. Without technology, you cannot enable anything. The people analytics which we have been talking about can only be successful when there's a technology which is enabling it, making it faster. Now, with respect to behaviors, which is the last leg of the question you had, I think basis the insights which analytics will drive through various tools, systems, personalities, assessment, styles of leadership, behaviors of leadership, also, and that will create a context of what are the strengths and weaknesses of the leaders, right? So as a leader, if suppose I get the view, so for example, there's a context of leading self. So how can I lead myself when I'm aware about my own self? One way of knowing myself would be the reflection journey, in which I look at my behavior in an inquiry process base and find out how do I need to conduct myself in a certain context, to even going for tools, whether it's a strengths finder, extended dispenser, and so forth, and then seeing a mirror reflection of who am I from my behaviors point of view, and then actually really looking at how can I then do the course correction. I cannot change my personality, that's a given. But despite of that, what is the masking I need to do in my behaviors, which can actually make me more effective to perform my role and job better, and also build the right collaborative context in the organization perspective. And that is where the analytics could play an important role in terms of giving me a lot of insights about me through different tool systems and integrating various tools which are and system which exist in the organization. That can be a good way of looking at it. And I know it's very complex. It's not a very easy thing which I'm saying in maybe making it sound look as if it's so easy to make it happen. It requires a lot of transformation for organizations, but then that's where the analytics actually could play an important role in terms of aggregating the lot of insights and helping leaders become more effective and manage their behaviors better. So Rashmi, I'll stop it here. I think these are some of the perspectives. I'm not the subject matter expert in this space, but these are more experiential contexts around. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you so much, Rajiv. That was really helpful. Dear participants, we are now opening this session for Q&A. So if you have any questions, please do put it across in the Q&A tab. Our experts would be happy to take it up and answer them here. And also, I can already see one in the Q&A here. It is from one of our attendees, Mr. Saurabh. So Saurabh's question is, what goes into establishing a predictive analysis of anticipated attrition? So Ms. Megha, would you like to answer the question?
There are two parts to it, Saurabh. So one is obviously keeping at a percentage level, which is obviously looking at the backdated numbers, looking at what's your hiring trend, and then taking a weighted average of how the percentage of attrition looks like. Nowadays, a lot of organizations have started to do a lot deeper insights around doing a predictive analysis, which means having a data set of your entire employee records, right from the date that they join, what kind of a career mobility that they have taken internally, to what are the compensation that they join, to what compensation increases they've got over time, their title, their average years of experience. And when you put and make sense of that data to what kind of talent is leaving out, and you have to put, obviously have an analytics guy who understand the technology, able to put macros if you're doing on Excel. Otherwise, there are tools available where you can do it, like a Power BI and a couple of other tools. And from that data set, what you would be able to analyze through multiple regression analogies that you put in, that in a particular organization, after a period of 3 years or 3.5 years, if the compensation is at a particular range, or if not promoted, or if not made a job mobility, or not given a training program, these are the 5 set or 10 set of skills or people who are going to attract. Now that's a very, very detailed analysis of attrition basis on the career history of the individual that goes in, and it's basically predicting individual wise that what are the 30 people or 50 people that are going to attract in 6 months. Different tools give you different results. Like in 5 years ago, when I did this analysis with one of our technology teams internally, we got to a 96% accuracy, which means the tool, after a detailed analysis of 1 year, we got it through 96% accuracy. We even went to the leaders and say, hey, these are the 50 names who are going to attract in six months. What are we going to do about it? Don't get into the fact that, oh, I don't believe in the tool, because we have seen in past 1 year it has 96% accuracy. Now the choice is ours, whether we want to have open hiring, whether we want to save these people. But it's about saying, what are we going to do about 50 people who are going to leave? Is it a shock? Is it something that we want to absorb? It is something that we want to do action. So I think that's the future of attrition in my mind, than going from just at a high level percentage or skill standpoint to even predicting that, basis the career trajectory, what are the kind of people who are going to leave. And then to fix that, imagine if data set starts to even throw out to say that, after an X point in this particular skill set, if you don't do different career changes for people, whether it's job, whether it's promotion, whether it's compensation or a learning program, this person suddenly becomes high risk without doing anything. So what are you going to do about that? So I think that's how, a data set of predictive analysis is going in today's world, I would say.
Yeah, thank you so much.
If I were to add a little experience beyond what Megha said. So from a, Megha beautifully actually captured in terms of how the career specific predictions can be made with respect to attrition. My experience was that when we tried doing this, with, again, similar to Megha's experience working with our big data team and trying to put together a system to predict the attrition, we looked at multiple variables. Because remember, with the same set of one variable of career may not be relevant in today's market. today the IT technology market is just going crazy. So your predictability will fail. Because there is market context to it as one of the variables. Then there is a variable context of what stage the individual is in career, right? How your company is evolving, what your culture context. So there's so many variables, and unfortunately, it's so complex, similar to human behaviors and psychology, that you cannot actually apply a formula to fix it. So your predictability will always be challenged. For a particular period, it may be working fine, and you have a trend. During particular months, during the year, you'll have high attrition, and you will also have lean months, low attrition. So your predictability will also vary basis those factors. So as long as as an organization, you are able to actually cover as many variables as possible to link that with your predictability, you will still have a little bit of chances of predicting it or doing it right. But remember, it's an ever-evolving thing. You cannot say that, okay, today you created one framework and you will be rest assured for future quarters or months that your predictability will always be accurate. So I was, pleasantly surprised when Megha said 96%, to the extent of 96% being correct. It's wonderful experience they had. And I think kudos to the team who made that happen at one time.
Yeah, and Rajiv, well said. In Pfizer, when we are trying to do, we are only able to achieve 80%. But again, variables change, organization changes, team changes who actually work on that data set. So absolutely agree. But again, it's a complex formula, complex way of looking at things. And sometimes you have to set it out, because, a lot of time business leaders will challenge you to say, oh, I don't agree, because they're not in that zone of believing that, this is the 10 people who are going to leave. But sometimes as an HR professional, you have to step back and say, don't focus on 10 people, focus on what are the next steps that you need to take. I think that's a pitfall of every data. It's not just analysis, attrition, anything that you think about. Think about of not saying what's the data is saying. Think about the story that you can create for the next future. And I think that's my key thing that I would say to all HR professionals, that data is only there to support you. It's only there to make your story stronger, but don't lose out on the story and the message that you want to give for your next step of actions that you have to take.
Yeah, completely agreed. Yes. Thank you for sharing your thoughts here. And Mr. Colin, I think we have one question from our attendee, Jisha. So Jisha's question is, what is the most innovative way in which HR analytics could be used?
Okay, thanks, Disha. In fact, I'm not sure whether what I'm going to say is going to be the most innovative way, but I think it's the most difficult one. And if you can really use HR analytics to design your organization, I think using it to put the right people in the right place and design your organization, I think this will be the most difficult one to do. It's easily said, and that's why I said it's the most difficult one. It's easily said than done. But if you, and I kind of illustrated my example earlier when we spoke about, when you're looking at, when you're actually designing the organization and you're seeing that there is an issue in a particular place, and you want to fix this issue, then you need to fix it in an appropriate way to find out actually what has resulted and what has actually triggered this particular issue. I give you a simple example. You have high attrition in a particular place. You want to figure out, why are people leaving? What's going wrong? Is there something wrong with the manager? Is there something wrong with the people that he has chosen? So you start correlating this data, and that's when you are able to start to design. Then you look at productivity that's going down in a particular place. Do you have the right people placed in the right place? So it's an opportunity to really disperse your population and ensure that you're able to bring in a beautiful balance between high performance, also have foot soldiers over there, and you're able to design your organization in the most idealist way that I could think of. So the power of analytics can be huge, and it's how we want to use it. Every organization would need to prioritize it. As I said earlier, it would need to define what is urgent, what is important, and what do I need to do right now. But if it actually can be used in something like this, you may actually end up, designing the organization that will actually go places. Yeah. because you will be able to put the right people in the right place, ensure the best engagement ratio, ensure the highest productivity ratio, ensure obviously the highest performance ratio. Yeah. So I think if I were to summarize, I think if you were to ask me, people analytics is only possible and can only be used in the best possible way if we can see possibilities before the reality. And if we can see that, and if we can place the right people in the right place, I think we will build an ideal organization. As I said, more easily said than done. But if you ask me, the most difficult thing to do.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing your thoughts, Mr. Colin. So I think we have another question. I would like to direct this question to Mr. Samar Banerjee. So the question is, to implement data analytics, does organizations need to recruit HR with specific skill sets?
That's a very difficult question for me to really respond to. Yes, these days, I think most of the students who are pursuing their post graduation or MBA in human resources are also being taught about HR analytics. So, what they typically will be taught is, if I'm not mistaken, and many of you who are probably currently pursuing their post graduation in human resources or any kind of diploma, you'll also be doing something around statistics and statistical tools and their deployment. So usually the story will begin from there. So one pointer to that is one needs to be really good at analytical capabilities or analytical thinking. So you can be very good in say mathematics, but you might not really have that analytical bend of mind. If you can look beyond what is there in the data, so that is one capability that one need to have. So you really today cannot define that I need to have this kind of skill sets to do HR analytics or any kind of business analytics. In fact, most of the current analytic courses or the success of this kind of profession is coming from people who really do not have any background in mathematics or statistics for that matter. It's all about your ability to imagine, your ability to look beyond what is apparent into the data, and the rest of the configuration or in terms of designing your systems processes, there are enough number of tools that can help you. So I do not see a very unique set of capability or unique set of training one has to really undergo to be to implement HR analytics into the organization. Today you have chatbots, you have maybe integrated evolutionary HR platforms which do lot of this integration at the back end. The algorithms are already defined and designed by the service provider, so you just have to plug and play. The only thing is your ability to bring in those insights from that data point is very important. So as Collins was also referring to, and in fact Rajiv was also talking about many kind of psychometric tools that are being used. So if I put both these responses together and today say that one of the most innovative ways of designing an organization. So if you look, I think Rajiv was also referring to Strength Finder as a psychometric tool. So if you look at that kind of a tool and then start bringing in some kind of analytics in designing an organization structure, you have to be very clear in your head as to what role need what kind of strength. So which is going to come from your HR learning or HR expertise. I don't think mathematics graduate or a statistics graduate will be able to really give us any kind of insight into that. So while we are designing an organization, what are the strengths that should lie, or the what are the capabilities that should lie at the top of the pyramid? What is that has to lie at the middle of the pyramid? And similarly, what are some of the capabilities that are required function by function? So today, if I say I have a finance person who is an extrovert, and he is sort of given a role of preparing the balance sheet. So there is every possibility that before the results are being declared, this person might talk about the numbers. So this can be a challenge. So these are some of the insights that we need to build into the analytics while designing organization systems, structures, processes. Earlier, probably this set of data was not available. How it was captured, how it was analyzed, and how it was put to use was uh, not really, I would not say known, because I am little skeptical about this entire analytics story, because I still remember uh, one one part of the learning that I had during my college days. So if some of you are today pursuing your MBA and you are reading books on interviewing skills, in the earlier days, the the Marwadis of our country, who are known to be having and possessing, and who are really the best in minds in terms of business. So they used to look at the individual stepping into an interview from a very different perspective. So one example was given, that the person in the interview board would notice as to which leg is the person using to step in first. So if he is using his right leg or he is using his left leg, so that used to give a lot of indication about the individual success. So that analytics was always or it was always there. Now what we are probably getting is a lot of tools to do it for us. So you really don't have to be an expert in this kind of tools and this kind of learnings. So you only have to bring in that expertise or that insight as an HR professional. I think that is sufficient.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Samar. That was a really valid point. Yeah. So, Mr. Rajiv, I have a next question for you. What would be your suggestion to an SME who would want to implement this HR analytics in the organization?
I think the first thing is there is no best practice, right? Because there's always a best practice in the context in which you're operating. So do understand your environment better. First of all, you need to understand whether your organization is very methodical, data-oriented organization. If that is the case, then you need to pay attention to every minutest level of detailing, because that will drive the difference for you, which means you need to collaborate better with the stakeholders to understand what kind of insights do they need for decision making. So make it collaborative. If your organization doesn't pay a lot of attention to data, then there's a culture shift which needs to be brought in. And if you are not capable to drive that change, so what you should limit is to create the insightful view within your scope, and then actually look at what are the variables which are affecting your organization decision making with respect to people retention, people hiring, people engagement. If you're in HR organization for a moment, that's what I'm assuming. And then try creating insights. Sometimes what happens is when the organization doesn't have the appetite and the mindset to appreciate the data, if you keep creating a lot of data and keep circulating it month on month or week on week basis, nobody will pay attention to it beyond a point, and you will start feeling frustrated. So in such a context, what you need to do is that you need to actually look at what is the insight from the data which you're generating. It could be important and influential in nature to bring the attention of the leadership to that issue. Then you should become too narrowed in your approach and bring that context before and pursue that with all the rationale. As you heard Megha did mention that when she went back to the leadership team, the line team, and told them that this is the data validation of last 6 months and we have seen the predictability of this rate, that would actually, the data will speak for itself. And that's where you'll see some difference in the mindset of the people. And they would, they can't actually deny the data accuracy. If you are, if they have trust in you and if they have they feel credible about your data reporting, right? So you need to also look at that, whether you are being perceived as a credible stakeholder from a data presentation perspective or not. If you are, then you can actually, then you don't need to speak a lot many things, your data will speak for yourself. I think these are very basic perspectives which you should pay attention to. And then there's a process of whether you want to leverage technology. You have people sitting the back end, churning the data in a more meaningful way, etc. You need to have that right SME available or right expertise available in your team to help you with this. Rashmi, back to you.
Sure. Thank you so much, Rajiv. So I hope that answers our question. And dear attendees, I don't see any more questions coming up. So I think it's time to wind up the session. But yeah, before we end the session, I would like to close it on a note that, so to sum up, data-driven HR empowers businesses to optimize their workforce and hiring strategies, which ultimately leads to a boost in business revenue. Hence, it is important that we start embracing the concept of people analytics and data-driven decision-making. I'm sure the insights shared by our esteemed speakers have been very beneficial to all our attendees. And if you have any other questions related to the topic, please do drop in your questions at the email ID sharmishta@greytHR.com. I'll also show that in the next slide. And also you can post your questions on our community platform, Grey Tribe. So Grey Tribe is the greytHR initiative, the community platform that we have come up with. The whole objective of this is the knowledge sharing. So just like our esteemed speakers today, many of the industry leaders are already part of our Grey Tribe, where they take up your questions and answer in the best way possible. So you can also reach out to us on this community platform, and the link to sign up to our Grey Tribe community is already given here. And this sign up is completely free of cost. That's why I told you it's purely the knowledge sharing platform. So I believe you definitely give it a try and have a look at it. And I think on this note, it's time to end this session now. But before that, we thank our speakers for taking out time from their busy schedules and join us in this session today. I'm sure the insights shared would surely help all our attendees. And also we thank all our attendees for joining us, and we'll be looking forward to see you in our upcoming Parichay sessions. Till then, take care, stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Bye.
Thank you, Mr. Colin.